So Amanda, I see your lips moving, but I think you might want
Sorry,
there you go.
sorry.
There we
Do
go.
you want me to disconnect? Should I disconnect and reconnect? Or is it better?
It's still not better.
Okay, do you want me to try? I can't, it's telling me to download the app and things like
Oh,
that.
shoot.
So do you want me to try getting back in real quick?
Amanda, are
That
you?
might be better if we were going to try to get rid of that static.
Amanda, rather than rejoining on your computer, do you have your phone there?
Yep.
I've tried using that number in the pin,
Okay.
and then you can switch your audio on Zoom to be phone audio and not computer audio.
So Amanda, just click onto the calendar invite and you should be able to get in quickly.
Did that fix it?
Yay.
Yes, it sounds better.
Yay!
Yay.
Sorry,
Yay.
guys. 99% of the time, user error right here. So I'll just stay right here in the conference room. Okay, I think we're ready.
We are good to go whenever you are.
All right. Welcome. Welcome, employee council members, and welcome to any visitors watching. We are happy to be hosting our September employee council meeting. And just glad that you can make it and learn of some updates. And during this employee council meeting this evening, we have 3 different feedback sessions that we'll be covering today. One of them is on the elementary return to in-person, which we want to ensure that we are receiving the perspectives of our employee council members as we look at all the factors involved in this. And also our employee guide is ready to go and we are in draft form and we need feedback from our employee council members regarding that. And then we're happy to have Ms. Kate Katoska here from our finance department to gather some additional input in terms of compensation around extra responsibility pay. So it's my pleasure at this time to go ahead and turn this over to Director David Ray, our board president. Director Ray.
Thanks, Amanda, and good afternoon, everyone. I was going to start out by saying there's nothing much going on in Douglas County right now, so I don't know what to tell you. But without a laugh track, I guess I'll never know if that joke was a good one or not. I just want to say again that we know there's a lot going on, and we know that the stress level of our employees are extremely high. And we just, first of all, I just want to be very assuring to you that we are doing everything we possibly can to continue to move us forward in spite of a lot of the things that have happened that we don't have control over. But I want to begin with the interim superintendent process. Some of those of you that enjoy watching the board know that we met on Saturday and spent most of the day working through a screening process of people that were nominated. And basically the process as it has been in the past are the board directors, each board director nominates a individual for consideration in the screening process. And the reason that is that the board really has kind of an intimate understanding of the complexities of our district level structure. And so as opposed to doing an all out kind of search, and because of this need for a sense of urgency to provide stability to the system, that's the process that we started with, is just each director nominating an individual. When we came out of the screening process, we identified 2 semifinalists, Dr. Damon Brown and Mr. Corey Wise. And through that process then, as we publicly interviewed them, the board took a vote, and the vote was approved to move Dr. Brown forward to begin the process of what we call a 14-day waiting window, which is a time for us to do vetting, to then allow for public feedback. And really for both parties to really spend some time contemplating whether or not it's a match and whether or not we want to move forward. in terms of actually hiring and contracting that person. As you have seen in some of the news, as we were starting the vetting process, Dr. Brown revealed to us that he had an alcohol incident issue, and that as we saw the things start to bubble there, he actually realized that he did not want that to be a distraction for us in terms of moving forward, and realized that our community, who's pretty well informed and well connected, certainly started developing some concern about that. So then he withdrew his name from moving forward because of that vetting process. The board will then from this reconvene again, and this is hot off the press for employee council first to hear this, but on Thursday at 4:30, the board will reconvene to continue the process of selecting an interim superintendent. And really, there could be three things that occur from that process. One is that we could certainly put Corey Wise' name forward for a vote, since he was a semifinalist. The other actions that could take place is the board could decide to broaden the process by maybe going with a full-blown application process to consider more applicants. The board can also kind of support the current succession plan, which is Matt Reynolds and Corey Wise kind of co-interning, if you will, the superintendent responsibilities. So another action could be simply to say that that succession plan continues on until further notice. So those are really the three things that could occur this Thursday. If I might, I want to editorialize a little bit about some of the chatter that's out there. And I know for some, the concern was, why would you go with an outside person who doesn't have classroom experience? And I think this is really worthy to talk to employee council about, because I think that certainly you should know that when we move into that permanent superintendent process, absolutely, I would anticipate one of our priorities is indeed classroom experience, building level experience would be one of our top priorities, as it was 3 years ago when we started the search for superintendent, when we appointed Dr. Tucker. So I just want to editorialize and tell you that the interim role is different than the permanent role. There are occasions where the interim role ends up progressing into the permanent role, but for us, in our system right now, I think our focus is what is most needed to support our executive level structure so that our employees can continue to focus on what you do best, as opposed to having all these distractions at what we're doing at the district executive level. So just know that I wanted to editorialize, because I know that for some people that was a huge disappointment, or they felt that that was a message that we were conveying, and it certainly was not the intent. Certainly, Dr. Brown certainly brought to us some unique qualities, as does Mr. Wise. And so I think if you tuned into that session, you would have heard a lot of angst with the board trying to make a determination. And you would have also heard board directors saying either candidate they could have gotten behind 110%. So anyway, that's the interim superintendent update. I'll go right into the next big rock, but also, I don't know, Amanda, should I pause and just take a question? Or Amanda, if there's something you felt like I could be more clear about in what I just said, I'll leave it to you to ask for clarity too.
That is something that certainly you can provide space for if you so desire. So that's truly up to you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to rely on you two, Amanda, that if you feel like that, you know this group well, and if you feel like there's some other things that they would be wondering about in terms of the interim superintendent update, please let me know.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Yep, go ahead, sir. And then Shauna can unmute if any of our members want to, if they have something that they want to ask of our attendees.
So our other big rock, thanks Amanda, our other big rock then of course is returning elementary students to full-time learning 5 days a week. And again, at our last board meeting, we set a target date for considering that. What was really the intent of that was really to move the system into motion to begin doing what I call a feasibility process, where we now really have those deep conversations with our employees. We look at logistics. We also want to do some quantitative feedback as well as qualitative feedback, so that on our meeting on October 6th at the board meeting, we can really hear back from staff, administration, the voices of our employees and our teachers, as well as a quantifiable means to help us understand where are people feeling in terms of levels of confidence in terms of returning after fall break full time. Obviously, these decisions are horrific. I'll just be honest with you in terms of it. Just, we cannot possibly make a decision that will please everyone. And that's why we have really been reliant on data to really drive us in terms of, in this case, there was certainly no data that would deter us from thinking we could do elementary in person. And certainly as a comparison to our neighborhood districts, where all our neighborhood districts do have their elementary students either in person or have a specific date when they're returning them to in person, that also is a piece of the puzzle as we're trying to decide whether or not it's feasible for us to do the same thing after fall break. So data is what's been driving us. We know at the secondary level, we have a whole different set of data. When we look at the number of people who are quarantining, and so we know that's a whole different story in terms of us making considerations. So at the board meeting, we certainly put that in a different bucket, if you will, for consideration. Even to some degree, one of the directors suggesting that we really can't even put a target date out there until the earliest would be in January, just because it's a different kind of situation when you have that many students and that many aged students at that level of middle school and high school. So that's where we are with the returning students back. And I'm really delighted to see on your agenda that you guys will have an opportunity to weigh in, because your information will also have a strong influence too when we bring it back on October 6th to begin really discussing, is it feasible for us to continue moving forward with the August 19th return date? So those are the two big things that I would share with you. But yes, if it's okay with Amanda and or Shauna, if it's feasible to do this, I would be more than glad to answer a couple of questions if that would be beneficial for your work today.
Okay, Employee Council, do you have any questions for Director Ray about any of his updates? Kim.
Hi, thanks for giving us the opportunity, Director Ray. I guess something that just popped up as I was hearing you share the process about returning elementary to full-time. I guess based on the other conversations from leadership, I had a different impression as to kind of the next couple of weeks, and was feeling like perhaps it was out in the system that we were trying to determine when we would go back, and that people might be going back in the next couple of weeks, maybe before fall break, maybe after fall break. But what I heard you just say, and I may have misinterpreted, was the board is meeting on the 6th, that you're gathering data, the feasibility of this, looking at returning after fall break. So can you help clarify that for me? And I apologize if I missed anything along the way.
Oh no, Kim, you're right on, and as usual, very insightful. And it's good to see your name. I don't see your face, but I see your name on the screen. So, so yeah, there was some conversation when the board made October 19th as the target date. There was some conversations, could schools go back earlier? if they were ready. And certainly the board did not take a position on that. We really felt like the system had to decide that. You know, certainly as one board director, I would tell you that I believe it's problematic for us not to move as a system when it comes to returning on the 19th. But I think also we don't want to necessarily micromanage the system to the point to where if the leadership and the system felt like that they had compelling reasons for some schools to get a jump start, that they would be able to do that. So again, it's not giving you great clarity other than you're correct that October 6th for the board directors is that we're looking for quantifiable qualitative data about the feasibility. I would be surprised if there's a school that really feels that confident to move forward without our October 6th meeting. But at the same time, that's where we have to allow our leadership structure to make those decisions. I don't know, Kim, if that makes it even more foggy, but that's kind of where I felt like we landed as a board at our last meeting.
No, that makes sense. And that pulls all the different pieces together for me nicely. So thank you for clarifying.
Sure, you bet.
And Kim, it's great to hear your voice. Also, just to let our employee council know, I know that our DOS have been, or EDOS have been working closely with principals to then have principals go and gather feedback from their buildings. So be expecting that so that you have that processing and opportunity to think about how that fits into the operations of your school. Also know that conversations are being had across multiple departments. So for example, HR, we have particular things we need to look at and be prepared to support our employees with. Operations and maintenance have particular things that they need to engage with school leaders on about what processes need to occur. So right now we are engaging in a lot of conversation and reviewing data, but know that part of that is gathering the input of employee council as well.
Good.
Other questions for Director Ray before the input starts for our input sessions? I don't see any hands raised, Director Ray, so.
Right. Well, let me just close by saying, I mean, I tell you that there's not a director that doesn't sit up on the dais that doesn't have a huge amount of angst for our employees right now. We know you have been pushed to the breaking point. Some of you are beyond that. And I would just tell you that there's not one of us up there that doesn't understand and feel your pain. And we feel the pain because there's not a clear solution for how we relieve that because so many of these things are out of our control. But I'll tell you what my hope stands on is I know Douglas County well enough to know that when we are in that point of depression and point of angst, that all of a sudden creativity takes over in this organization. Solutions start coming, and that's where my hope really is. I would just tell you that I have such faith in our employees during these insane times, but please know that we are just like you. We're seeking answers and we don't have them. I'll just be honest. We don't have them. We're seeking answers from you to help see if we can find a common path that makes sense, because we know your jobs have never been harder. So just know that we're there with you and looking forward just to continuing the journey and keep arm in arm as much as we can as we figure out what our next steps are. So again, thank you. Thank you for your work today. Looking forward to hearing more about it on our meeting on October 6th. And thanks, Amanda, again, for the invite to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So employee council, again, I'm loving looking at all of your names here as attendees, and I hope that we get to hear each and every one of your voices and your perspectives this evening, because you all do make a difference and your voice matters. And so thank you for serving in this leadership role. So as we previously mentioned, we are gathering input across the system in terms of what you want us to be aware of, what things we need to consider as we review data, as we review all of the factors involved in potentially returning to in-person so that we can provide our, as I speak to the elementary level, so we can provide an update to the board in the coming weeks. So with that, I want to thank Kathy Franklin, who is going to be taking notes for us so that I can make sure I capture this information from our group to move forward. So at this time, I'm just going to open it up to the group and just use your hand raising mechanism in the system to let us know what your thoughts are. Are there things you want us to be aware of? Are there concerns? Are there points? Is there anything that you want me to forward on from your perspective as we think about elementary return to in-person, whether that's timing, logistics, needs? This is your time to help us understand your perspective so that I can make sure that that is considered as we move forward with recommendations. Colleen. Colleen, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, great to hear your voice.
Excellent. Good to see you too. Hey, one quick question. There have been some rumors that potentially e-learners would be able to return at fall break. And we've heard that may happen, that may not happen, that may be a case by case. I don't know if you can give any answers to that, or if it could just be something that needs to be further addressed because of the logistics that would occur if we get a huge influx of kids right at that time.
Thank you. Yes, I can forward that on for further clarification. I do know that past communications have gone out at the start of e-learning around semester decisions. So I don't have any specifics regarding if any case-by-case situations would be permitted. So that I can definitely bring forward to our leadership team so that we can ensure that we're providing that clarity. And Colleen, from what I'm hearing you say is it correct to say that should that occur, you would want to know and the system would need to know at what capacity and providing time in order to accommodate for this change if that were to be truthful.
You're exactly right. While I'm dying to get those kids back in the classroom and, we want the e-learners back, it would just be, there would just be a lot of logistics that would have to occur on top of getting full classrooms back. Then we have e-learners who have not been on, our same curriculum and, looking at Google Classroom and how that functions and what kind of support could be offered to classroom teachers who now all of a sudden are maybe getting 5, 6 brand new students when we've already had the other students for 6 weeks up and running. So yes, you're exactly right.
Okay, thank you. And I am certain that Kathy will get that captured so I can deliver that forward. Thank you. Kim, are you there?
Yeah, and just to piggyback, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but Colleen was just mentioning the e-learners, and I know that I've heard a lot from staff members as well. And the caveat is not just all the things Colleen mentioned, but the wondering around class sizes and the fact that many schools lost classroom teachers because of the loss of e-learner students and that unique conundrum that might present. So I know that was some things that we got a lot of questions about at our building.
Okay, thank you. We have down the topic and details around class size impact based on level of shift. Thank you. Hi, Adriana, are you there?
Uh-oh, hold on.
Oh, I think I have you now.
Okay. Yeah, so 2 things following up on the, comments about the e-learning and that shift happening in October when, my understanding of the communication was that when families selected e-learning, that they wouldn't have the choice to change until the semester. I know in preschool that a survey has gone out to parents and that e-learners are being given the option to transition back into the classroom. So, I think just having some clarification about that. I know that, it has all of us kind of in a tizzy where it's like we've spent all of this time. I have 17 kids that I'm doing speech therapy with on the computer, 3 and 4 year olds. So that's been interesting. But, if I've already put that time in, what could that look like if that transition happens sooner than expected? So I think some clarification there would be good. And then, my other concern, I really appreciate the data-driven approach to making these decisions. And so I guess I'm a little confused as to why, when our numbers are going up in Douglas County, why this decision is being made, and especially heading into cold and flu season where, it's expected that we're going to see an increase in numbers. And please understand, I want kids back in person. My own son absolutely needs to be back in school. The hybrid has been really hard, but our numbers per 100,000 have doubled in the last couple of weeks. I saw that the CDC has now updated, their information confirming, aerosol spread of COVID-19, and that, cloth masks aren't designed to prevent the spread. So, I just want to make sure that decisions are, I just want to have a better understanding, I guess, of why this decision is being made and where that data is coming from, because when I look at the data, it doesn't seem to support that decision.
Okay, thank you for that. I see those multi-layers in there. One is on the preschool survey, gathering input from families, and then also just trying to better understand the data utilized and in what capacity.
Correct.
I have, let me see, Nancy Ingalls is here. Thank you so much, Nancy. Is there anything around any of those topics that you wanted to share, or we can certainly just bring that forward?
Yes, I think it's really good to bring that forward. With early childhood sort of being self-contained, if you will, in terms of how we serve our preschoolers, and knowing that preschool learning is very much play-based. We felt that we definitely had the capacity to bring e-learners back if we're able to. And so to gather that information to see what the interest is will be important. I know that we're also going to be reaching out to early childhood staff to gather their questions and thoughts around what will be needed to make that shift as we align with elementary schools after fall break.
Thank you for that information. Jen. Hi, Jen, are you there? Thanks for your patience.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
So I just wanted to comment about the elementary return dates. I've heard a lot of schools starting to at least solicit feedback or gather input about returning before the 19th, even when school is looking into as early as this coming Monday. And I have concerns that not all departments are involved in that conversation, and that I'm worried about schools making decisions without all ducks in a row. As of this morning, transportation was saying they could not carry any more kids or change any schedules before the 19th. So I don't know what elementaries who are planning to go back before the 19th are doing. And from nutrition services where I work, we haven't been told any dates directly. It all seems to be a little bit roundabout. So without notice to change menus, to get additional food to sites, to potentially increase staffing. I know Ted Knight had said at the meeting, the last thing we want to do is come back without being really ready, and potentially having to then push back dates because at the last minute we're not ready. And I worry with 55 elementaries making 55 independent decisions, that we could really have a mishmash of plans in place if they all get to make their own choices.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. We can forward that on. And Derek, thanks for joining.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
So I feel that part of my job here is to advocate. I know several cabinet members took a lot of time off during summer, during spring break. I know that principals and teachers have not gotten much time. I worry about the timing of this and opening after fall break. I worry that our teachers and our principals are going to continue to not have any time off and to just get more and more tired. So I just want to advocate for teachers and principals that we're exhausted, and I worry about the timing of this.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I have heard that input before as well in terms of ensuring that we provide that break because we certainly wouldn't want our leaders and our teachers as well and other school staff working through that break in order to prepare. So is that accurate to capture it in that manner?
Certainly. And again, I apologize for my directness, but I just feel that we need to talk about things at this point, and talking around them is not helping. So I apologize for the directness, but thank you so much.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you for your input. Other bits of input. Other principals, other classified staff, ProTech, we have every employee group represented. This is your chance to help us understand your perspective. Terry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi. So I am an e-learning teacher, and I have heard that the rumor too that maybe some kids would go back to the classroom, but we have also been told that they have reached out that some families want their kids now not in full time with larger groups of kids, so that some kids will be leaving and coming to e-learning. And so we were kind of told that it was going to be case by case, and that our class sizes, wouldn't go up too much. So I don't know how much, it is something I was just going to piggyback on that whole discussion, that it is something that we do need final answers on. But I do feel like there's going to be, if there's movement, it might be both ways. So.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm hearing a theme of a need to communicate and clarify around our e-learners and just the option of shifting. So thank you for that. I will forward that on. Vera. Vera, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So as a high school teacher, I have to tell all you elementary people we're anxiously watching and hoping and that things will go smoothly, because obviously we'll be following however you guys go. But we also just had a question on the e-learning. We have teachers that are teaching at the high school and e-learning teachers. How would that change at the high school level at all? I'm hearing the elementary, but how would that work at the high school level?
So that's a great question. So our executive directors over schools are working with various levels of school leadership to have those conversations so that people, we can start to gather that understanding of what that's going to look like and what varying needs we need to consider as we look at each of the levels.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So like right now, so I teach 4 different science classes where the students are there in hybrid, and then I have 2 online Edgenuity classes. So those, are they going to last through to the semester? It's not like they'll halfway say they can switch now, correct? Is that the way it's happening?
I can definitely seek and gather more clarity on that. A previous communication did occur at the beginning of the semester, and it did state that. So if there are any shifts, I would imagine that we would need to communicate that with our families. I know at some point in preparation for semester, we will need to gather that input as well. So we're having ongoing conversations at various leadership levels. And we will continue to ensure that we are communicating all that we need to make sure our teachers and our leaders and our families are in the know. But please know that at some point in the near future, I know we're having level principal meetings and things for the purpose of exactly that, to help clearly define what those impacts look like. So thank you for that. That just affirms the process that's occurring.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. I thank you for your patience. Deb, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Deb.
Hi. Hey, thank you. And thanks for allowing the input for this very important topic happening in elementary right now. I think a couple of things that are just kind of heavy on just our minds and trying to do some figure arounds and figure some things out really kind of come down to resources and just ensuring like the social distancing piece. We really are struggling with how we're going to bring back classrooms of 20 to 25 and maintain that social distance. We have been trying to get a feel for where we're at in the district as far as desks. And there are no desks available right now in the district. We have called the warehouse and they told us that we'd have to purchase them. And of course, with our budgets and what is happening with that, it's not really a feasible thing for us to purchase another couple hundred desks for our students. So that is a concern. And then the second concern that we're really struggling with is from the SPED department and supporting students both online and then coming back 5 days a week. Right now, we've been able to work through that with just the hybrids and figuring out who's online, who's not online, but and maintaining and being able to do our e-learners as well. But now with our hybrid kids coming back 5 days a week, it is it's going to be very challenging for our SPED teachers to meet the needs of their e-learners and their kids that they're seeing 5 days a week in person.
Okay. Thank you for that. Nancy, did you did you have anything to add or not? And the great news is you have Nancy on here hearing this as well. So Nancy?
I apologize, Amanda. I was just taking a phone call, so I missed the question.
No worries. So there is some feedback from the elementary level around.
Hey, Nicole, I just finally realized that we had set that meeting up with just us and your mom. And I was driving when you called, and I just finally realized that that's what the meeting was
I'm
to
so
check in
sorry.
and see how you were doing. So huge apologies.
Shauna, can you mute that person?
So are you feeling comfortable with your classes and like you're going to be able to keep up with them?
Hi.
Or?
I think someone on our call is not muted in their personal conversation. Shauna, you can work on muting everyone. Does that work? Thank you. Okay. Nancy, so the question was or I guess just a statement of there is wondering, a little worry and concern around what special education service models will look like in a shift from hybrid to in-person, and knowing that our special educators and special service providers are providing support in e-learning as well.
Great. I know that our principals are going to be reaching out to their whole staff to gather some information again about questions and maybe, some thinking around logistics that need to take place. I had the opportunity to talk with all of our special education coordinators today. And so they are going to be reaching out to their teams at their elementary schools to have a similar discussion. Every elementary school handled serving hybrid and e-learning a little bit differently. And so there are some teams that will have an easier time with scheduling and others that need a little more problem solving. And so we're going to collect all of that information so that we have a good picture, an accurate picture of the logistics that we're looking at in order to make the change.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So input all around is what I'm seeing and hearing in the system. Any other thoughts on this topic that any of our members want us to be aware of? Kim.
I was trying to give a lot of wait time because I was just going to add things that people hadn't already said. So if anyone else has their hand raised, feel free to jump over to them instead. But I'd reached out to some other feeder schools. And so I wanted to make sure that I was sharing some of their wonderings and things to consider under this topic. And one of the things that I heard from a couple different buildings was a wondering around the information that we seem to be sharing with teachers and possibly community around the deep cleaning for safety purposes. And hearing from different buildings that that deep cleaning that we're saying is happening may not be happening. And therefore, with returning to full time, a heightened concern around how do we get the cleaning to be occurring if it indeed is not the way that we're saying that we would like it to be. So some questions around the preventative cleaning measures.
Okay, thank you for that. We can definitely bring that information and concern forward so that as we communicate out in the system, that is included. Thank you very much. I will forward that on to the operations and maintenance department.
And then I did have a couple others, but again, I don't want to monopolize. So if there's other hands up, I'm happy to remute and wait till the end.
I don't see any other hands, so.
Okay,
please share.
people, raise your hands. I don't want to be the only one talking, but another theme that I heard from a couple different buildings is just a wondering about any particular staff members who may have been on the more anxious, nervous scale about returning when we were in hybrid. But now with this looming possibility of full-time, full class sizes, I don't know what options there might be for those staff members. And so that's a question that's out there in the system.
So Kim, I just want to make sure I capture your thinking correctly. For people who have an interest to be in person, is that what you're saying? And they may have made a previous choice before?
No, and I don't want to try to interpret anyone's reasoning, but that it was actually the opposite. It's
okay.
I came back. We were hybrid. I was nervous, but it was okay because I had 10 kids in my room. And now when we're thinking about 25, 28, it's a different matter. And are there any options?
Okay, thank you for that. And from the HR perspective, there are various individuals who fall under vulnerable that would qualify to apply for a COVID accommodation request.
And then the same process as before.
Yes, so accommodation requests may be received at any time. Now, the timing is all dependent upon what can be provided or not. And so just know that those, and we'll continue to communicate this out as larger communications come forward. We do have a process for that, and that is all available on our benefits website as it was previously. But as we start to release information of what is occurring, that is part of one of the HR processes that we are involved in during the shift, a proposed shift like this.
Okay, and I had two more things, but again, I want to make sure that other people are
You're
getting
good.
Okay. Then another one was just something to consider about, and I don't even know what to do with this one, but just the idea of, as elementary, we started as hybrid. We're seems like potentially or probably moving back to that 100%. But there may be other things that happen that cause us to go to full remote. Who knows if it causes us to go back to hybrid, and that balancing back and forth. And are there systems or anything that we can put into place to make these bouncing back and forth potentialities a little smoother for kids, for families, for teachers? That's probably not something that someone else hasn't already thought of, but just wanted to share that since someone had shared it with me.
Thank you for that. And I can speak to that. And we too have all been having conversations of that, knowing that this is our first process learning through at that beginning of the year. And that we are having conversations and looking at from each of the various aspects of our departments and gathering input from our system of leaders as to the things we need to consider and be ready to do to shift in and out and as fluidly as possible. So HR, it's always that review of, accommodations. It's always that impact of looking at staffing by making these shifts and supporting our employees through that as well. So, and each of our departments have various things that they need to look at and consider. So I'm glad you brought that up again, something that affirms the work that we're doing around that. So thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for doing that. And then finally, but probably most important, the thing that I'm hearing over and over from staff members from different buildings is just, no shocker here, guys, time. And I think kind of the prevailing thought I'm getting from some educators is the sooner we can get a date that we know for sure we're returning, the more people can actually start readjusting, planning. And so with that, my very first question that I asked about, well, is it undecided or is it after fall break? The unknown alone is hard because we're kind of preparing, but we're not really preparing. And so that is, I know that's not a shocker to anyone. But having a date that we know we're moving towards, the sooner the better, just for mental well-being and being able to wrap our mind around it. And then I know I've heard from different buildings, is there any time available? We don't want to lose instruction time with kids, but we do want to do our jobs well and look professional for our parents and for our kids. And so is there any ability to have some planning time to make this switch from a educator standpoint?
Thank you
Or
for
whatever.
Yep. Thank you for all of that. And, you know, as you know, we have an upcoming board meeting of where we'll provide an update, and I'm sure there will be as much solidifying of a date as possible. And in hearing of the need for potential resources like desks, and it does sound like there is somewhat of a need to prepare in various aspects. And Kim, you're right, it is not a shock that people want to plan as educators, and as a teacher and principal in the past myself, yes, that is just part of our DNA. So thank you for sharing that forward.
Well, and thank you everyone for listening to all of these. Again, I tried to reach out to other feeder schools and make sure that we were getting a wide variety of input. So thank you for the time. I'm done.
Anytime. You don't have to be done, but that's fine. Colleen.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm just going to share my opinion on a couple of things really quickly.
Sure.
Number one, I think having e-learners return midstream is going to be really difficult. And I wasn't as diligent as Kim was and reached out to other feeder areas, but I speak for my team. As much as we want to have those kids, it would be an enormous impact and an enormous stress to have them return after fall break to the classroom. And that makes me sad to have kids not come back, but I'll just be really honest, it would be a real struggle to have that happen and not wait until the semester break when things are pretty natural. And as teachers, we kind of knew that was a possibility coming up going into this school year. So we've kind of planned ahead already. And then second of all, to kind of piggyback on what Kim was saying to the clarity of the message, I just really feel like that is going to take some of the stress out of this when we can really have a finalized decision. And I know the board wants a finalized decision. We all want that finalized decision sooner than later. And then I would also ask that there would just be really conscientious about consistency across the district. I think while I'm a big fan of autonomy, and I am a big fan of letting schools know their communities best, I also think it is really difficult in this time when I hear of other schools that are allowed to do this or allowed to do that, or their procedures are different. It's kind of frustrating. And so I guess I would just ask for an emphasis on consistency across the board with as much diligence, understanding that there is an exception to everything that occasionally pops up.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Any other bits of feedback or thoughts from anyone in our group? Okay, thank you for your thoughts. This information will be compiled and shared. We'll include this as part of our qualitative data and share this forward. There were various sources of feedback or themes of feedback that lended itself to various departments. So please know that from a cabinet member's perspective, I'll be sharing this forward with cabinet so that we can be inclusive of this information as we move forward in communicating and or sharing with our board. So thank you. We have 2 more feedback sessions and about an hour left. I am happy to turn this over to Kathy Franklin, who has done a great job gathering feedback around policies. And this kind of coincides right into that process, which is the employee guide draft. Know that this has gone through our legal office in partnership with multiple departments as it pertains to them. And I'll have Kathy share out. We did provide you a link to view at your leisure, although we know you're very, very busy. But we wanted you to have access to see that. And we're covering particular areas this evening, but Kathy will provide space for other areas. So Kathy, I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think Sean is going to go ahead and project the employee guide so you can take a look at it while we're walking through it. And we wanted to kind of go through just some of the policies that we've made changes to or that are new and get your feedback, and then give you a chance to let us know if there are any other policies you'd like to give us feedback on. So the first policy we're going to look at is called FFCRA, and Shauna, it's on page 13. If you want to get to that. And this is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act paid sick leave. So basically talking about that certain employees, in certain circumstances, employees are eligible for additional paid sick leave over and above what they would have in their accrued sick leave balance in workday. So would like to just let you know that that's there and make sure that it's clear and that everyone understands it. And if you could just give us that feedback and let us know if there's anything that we might need to change to make it so that people better understand it.
Kim. Kim, are you there?
Did you say it was on page 13 of the employee guide?
13.
I'm seeing threats, discussions of unlawful use of weapons. So I'm not seeing the same thing you are, but it says, oh, that looks like 14. So is it on page 13 of the document or page 13 of the PDF? Or is it the same?
The document I'm looking on, it's page 13. So I wonder if it just, the way it's loaded for you is different.
Okay.
Kathy, what's the number? Not the page number, but the item number. Do you have that?
That would help.
Let me tell you. So on mine, it doesn't have an item number.
It's on page 7.
Thank you for that.
Yes, I see it now. Thank you. Are you here? Hi. Hey.
Any thoughts about that particular area? You can use the raise your hand feature if you have questions about this section. I see one. Deb.
So I was just curious about, there isn't any, it doesn't define how long that leave is for, or put an end to it, or you know, how long a person has to take advantage of that. And I didn't know if that was purposely omitted. Maybe it changes, or I was just curious about that.
Thank you for that. Kathy, anything you want to share, or are we just taking that back as a input?
I'll take that back to legal and let them know that that's a question that was raised, and we'll see what their thoughts are.
Okay, anyone else? Anything around FFCRA? which is what we do have that available to all employees. Okay, Kathy, I don't think we have any more on that topic.
Okay, the next one is bereavement. And it looks like, since what I'm looking at is different than what you're looking at, I'd say it's probably 2 pages lower than FFCRA. So we'll see if you can find it for me, Shauna. There we go. So on bereavement leave, in the past, we had language in there that was very specific about who you could take bereavement leave for. So that's been cleaned up and we've taken that language out. I just want to make sure that this looks good to everyone.
So Kathy, in essence, is it accurate to say that this has allowed more flexibility as what people constitute as family, correct?
It does, yes.
Okay, so this is an improvement. Any thoughts, feedback around that? We have one. Kim.
Is there any need to, I know there's a whole line about, taking advantage of it. Is there any limits as to if horrible events befall a person more than once in a year? Are there any yearly or how many times? Does that make any sense?
Well, a limit on how many times you can take bereavement.
Yes, there you go, a limit.
Gotcha.
I'm hoping that no one needs that, but.
Yep. Good point, Kim. I hope no one has that many sad moments like that in a year, but we can get that clarity.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Okay, Kathy, next one.
Okay, so comp time, I believe, is on the next page, Shauna. So in comp time, originally in the employee guide, it stated that employees could earn up to 120 hours of comp time, which was really confusing because employees took it to mean that across the board that's what they could do, when really it was based on a supervisor by supervisor decision-making basis. So I think that language is now clear, but want to get your input and make sure it really is clear.
So that's highlighted for your viewing. Questions about that? Is there anything that doesn't make sense? And from the employee view, needs better clarification, suggestions? I see one. Jen, are you there?
I think I leaned on the raise hand part. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No worries. No worries. Kim.
Did there used to be a line in there about needing to request prior to expending extra hours? Does that make any sense? Like I need to get approval to work the extra hours that would earn me comp time, or am I making that up?
I don't think that was in there before, but I'm not going to say 100% that I'm sure of that.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a necessary thing or not, like to get approval.
I'll make a note.
I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but just a thought.
It does. It does. Almost like there's typically approval for, in the rare instances that we have overtime, and making this parallel with that process. Okay. Thank you. Any other feedback regarding comp time? Okay, next section, Kathy.
Now we're going to the appendix sections, Shauna. So at the very end. Oh, so appendix A. So some of the feedback we've gotten on the appendix sections are that it's confusing. Looking at how you calculate time is confusing to some employees. Does this now look clear? Would you understand how to calculate your time?
Kathy, so in relation to this particular appendix item, is it also, employees can also go into Workday to do a future date that will show that as well. Is that true or no? Does that not apply here?
I don't know about the future date. I mean, they can
Okay.
go, they can see what they have earned, yes.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the group? Comments? Okay, I don't see any feedback regarding that.
Okay, I think, just taking a quick look here, I think that's the only calculation that was a problem. So beyond that, are there any other policies that you've taken a look at that you have any feedback on that we need to modify?
The entire employee guide draft is open for feedback. Any other areas that you want to scan? Shauna, is there a possibility to go to like the table of contents?
I don't think there's a table of contents in this version.
Okay.
I'll go to the very front of it just to see, but I don't believe
Okay.
there is.
Thank you. So employee council members, any other thoughts about any of the other items? Okay. Okay, well, thank you for your feedback. We will look to finalize this process this week. So if you have any further bits of input, you may send it to Shauna or Kathy or myself so that we can ensure we get this over to our legal team in a very timely manner. And then even more importantly, ensure we finalize processes so that we can actually make this live and have the most updated version available to our community of employees. So thank you for that. Kathy, thank you for that process.
Thank
You do a great job as usual. I would love now to turn this, the last feedback session over to Ms. Kate Katoska, who is our Chief Financial Officer, as she gathers feedback on additional pay.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Council, for giving me some space tonight. This update is related primarily to the extra responsibility pay going to our high school licensed staff, related to teachers who are taking on both students within the hybrid model as well as e-learning students. So when we open up the school year, our high schools, for the most part, sort of took on the scheduling of both of those models and contained it within the building. And we heard a number of bits of feedback from our high school leaders about just the capacity burden of their teachers taking on that dual responsibility. So a portion of the CARES funding, about $808 per e-learning student, was allocated to our high schools. And that is to support supplemental pays in 3 different varieties. One is an additional incremental FTE for teachers that are taking on additional sections related to the support of e-learning students in addition to their hybrid students. So that is fairly common practice, as I understand it, throughout the district when a teacher takes on additional sections. The second is in the form of a teacher taking on students who are normally under the e-learning model within their hybrid format as well. So that is a payment of $110 per e-learning student per semester. So we recognize that there could be some duplication of students who are under, different teachers and sections throughout the day. But for every student, every e-learning student that a teacher is taking into their hybrid model, that stipend of $110 per student per semester would be paid out. The third category is for teachers who are serving as content experts. And so for those teachers that are supporting both students and staff who might be teaching outside their content area, a supplemental payment of $2,100 per semester is paid out to support that work. So in most commonplace, they're giving up an hour of planning time to serve as a one-on-one for office hours and things of that nature. So that's how that calculation was based on an hour per day, the number of weeks in the school year, and a standard rate of $30 per hour in terms of calculating that payment. So this was communicated to the board on September 1st in terms of our desire to roll this out. Principals have been going through the process of identifying, the teachers who are eligible for those various types of supplemental pay and which bucket they should fall under. EDOS has been approving those plans as well. And then we'll forward all of that on to payroll department for payment likely in the October run. For those payments that are related to FTE, we recognize that we'll have to do some retro pay and make sure that we make that payment whole. So that process will happen as well. So this is less about feedback on the amount, but more just feedback on the process and if there are other areas that we should be considering. As this was communicated, we did hear from a number of schools and teachers asking about support for special service providers and special ed teachers, whether they're in a high school or an elementary or a middle school. For those that are working in a high school, the principal would have been documenting those teachers also as eligible for those payments as well. So we should have those covered. And then I am currently working with the special ed team to identify those staff within elementary and middle schools who are doing that double duty of e-learning and supporting hybrid students to make sure that we can get that eligibility out there as well and get those payments processed. Really bounding the conversation tonight just in that bucket of supplemental pay. I know there are typically a number of conversations around this topic, and I think our efforts over the course of the next months and I don't know how long will be to really try to put some standardization around those types of pays that do go out. But for tonight, really just seeking feedback again on those supplemental pays related to that dual capacity serving hybrid and e-learning students. So with that, it looks like we have a couple of hands raised.
Yep, I will take that. Yep. Hi, Derek.
Hi again. Hi, Katie. I'm sorry I haven't had the pleasure to meet you yet. I'm the principal at Daniel C. Oaks High School down here in Castle Rock. So first off, I really appreciate that we're compensating teachers for their extra time. And frankly, it's not enough, but I understand it is what it is. So what I'm hearing through the grapevine is that at the cabinet level, pay for administrators and for classified is being held up. So I'm wondering if there's any conversation that we can have about why administrators and classified are not also being comped for their time.
So you're correct that conversation is still in process around both classified as well as administrators. It was originally proposed as those forms were completed in the form of an FTE, and that didn't seem to be an equitable process in terms of making that payment. So I've been working with Mary Chesla and folks on the HR team, as well as some others, just to figure out what the right calculation is for those types of payments, when it's not as clean cut as I took an additional section, or I took these particular students into my building or my classroom, or I'm doing this additional work related to serving as a content expert. So we're really just wanting to make sure we get that calculation right, and understand the messaging, when lots of folks are feeling taxed and taking on just the weight of the amount of work that is awe-inspiring in terms of what everyone, and especially you all and principal, everyone is doing to make sure that we can be successful in this endeavor, and as we think about transitioning back, and as we think about even what second semester looks like. So Derek, it's still very much on the table. Like I said, I really wanted to make sure that we get that calculation right.
Perfect. So can I ask one more question,
Mhm.
Katie? So is it appropriate for me to comfort my administration and my classified people that they will be paid, or is that something that I should not continue to encourage them that they will be comped for their time at this point?
I would say until such a time where we have that calculation finalized, let's just hold on that communication.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Adriana. And then Amy, you're next.
Yeah, hi. I work at the preschool level, and this is the first that I've heard about any of this. So I know that you have mentioned, high school, middle, elementary. And so I would just ask for you guys to please bring preschool into the conversation there, because I know that we have many, many SSPs as well as special education teachers who are supporting both e-learners and hybrid students.
Absolutely, Adriana, and I believe that's part of the work and the numbers that I'm waiting to get those counts of e-learning students that are sort of within that dual bound and not in a high school. So still working on that.
Thank you. Amy, thanks for your patience.
Hello. I have a question, and it's maybe more of a comment, just in terms of second semester. I have a big concern, and I know that money is an issue and that these dollars run out at the end of the year. But if this continues, and it looks like this might very likely continue in the format that we have next semester, I have some concerns about how we go forward, continuing to compensate these people next semester. And I know in the beginning we it was great and we had the system, but we're quickly approaching second semester. So I just hope that we're thinking about these teachers and compensation going forward.
Absolutely. And then I've said, in a couple of different board meetings, it is the thing that keeps me up at night, having to feel maybe narrow term focused for a long-term problem. And really what I've been working to do is making sure that while the CARES funding does have a termination date of December 31st, looking for mechanisms within the guidance of the grant that could possibly allow us to extend that runway in order to meet those second semester needs. But I think just as we went through a pretty extensive planning and sort of that puzzle solving process with teachers and staff and students and choice and all of that, I think, we might be looking at something similar to build that puzzle or rebuild that puzzle again for second semester.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other feedback? Anything you want Kate to be aware of? Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. Thank you for the opportunity to give an update, Kate, and thank you for, as always, taking time to hear the voice of Employee Council.
Thank you, everyone. So
everyone, that is the agenda for this evening. Is there anything else you want me to be aware of? Is there anything else you, any other ways that we can serve and support that, to support you in all the great work that you are doing? Okay. Oh, I see one. Kim.
Of course it's me.
Hey, that's okay.
Well, just thinking about Employee Council, a lot of times we talk about nitty gritty of guides and policies, and we give feedback sometimes on hard or troubling, quote unquote, things that, not problems, but things we're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder about the aspect of Employee Council around supporting our staff during this turbulent time, emotionally, that morale piece. And I know at a building level, we're racking our brains, and I didn't know what we had at a district level, whether it's through the foundation or if there's any work, more than likely it is going on behind the scenes because you guys are doing a lot of work in planning and trying to be proactive. But just from an employee council perspective, is there anything else out there that we can be tapping into that we can't compensate adequately any of our staff members for the incredible work they're doing, like Kate referenced. But are there other things out there our foundation can get a hold of that they aren't already, but just to keep people going? That's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about. And, I have very limited resources where I know at a district level and a foundation level, they have a wider net that they can cast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my mind.
Sure. And perhaps we can build in time in the coming month in that agenda item to share out and maybe see if a foundation member would be willing to come and share as well. As you know, please remind everyone of the employee wellness resources available that are free. I know that Holly from our department came and shared last time, and that can't be shared enough, whether that's virtual exercise classes. There's so many opportunities, employee discounts. There are, of course, our employee assistance program. There are webinars for home work balance, how to take care of yourselves, healthy eating, how to manage stress. There are free apps available that are available through our wellness department, and lots of free resources and opportunities through Kaiser and Cigna Allegiance. So, and there are links to all of that are featured in our benefits and wellness site. And it's an internal site for employees. So you do have to be, I believe, in your single sign-on or in your email or in our system in order to access that. So we continue to communicate that out. So does our communications department. And we cannot stress enough how many opportunities and free resources are out there. But we will keep researching, and we'll keep find ways to help our employees and to provide avenues to support if we can't do so by paying everyone all that we really do want to pay them. Any other thoughts or needs? I have a question. So I see that our meeting, we just followed the same pattern. Our meeting is October 19th. I believe that's right after break. Is that too difficult of a date to resume in terms of a return from break back with schools? Thoughts from the group on that? Should we consider keeping it or shifting it to the next Monday? Thoughts? I see a couple hands. Thank you. Kim.
Oh, you should have called on me last because I was like, well, I will raise my hand if no one else is.
We've got three, so you raised first.
I appreciate you asking that question because yes, if there's that potential of elementaries returning full time, that's the first day. I think if we gather feedback a week later, we'll have a lot more food for thought, much less being on a break for a week and hopefully not really talking about work with people.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. I have two more bits of feedback. Yeah. The mama bear and me kind of had a hunch on that one. So Colleen.
Yeah. Ditto exactly what she just said.
Okay. So our next person. So Chris.
Hi. Yeah, I kind of agree that that's quick to come back. I think we need that extra week, and we'd probably have more comments and feedback at that point too.
That is perfect. So thank you for that. Shauna, I just think that's kind of best for looking at the well-being of our members here of Employee Council. Shauna, can you work to set an alternative date in a future week in October?
Yep, I will sure do that. And then I'll resend the invites.
Okay. Thank you. And so I will we'll convene, or we will wrap up our meeting. I just want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing. We do not have to wait a month in between. If there are needs that come up, if there is something that you need or a theme out there in the system, You may always get a hold of any of us here at the district, but you know how to reach out to Shauna and myself. So we thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your honesty and your perspective. Truly, truly value it. And I'm just so proud of the work that that this group does and the commitment by this group. So thank you. I'm proud to lead with you. And thank you to all of our panel members for sharing and contributing to the conversation. So with that, please go take care of you. Hopefully get some dinner and have a tiny bit of downtime and spend time with those loved ones and take care of yourself. Thank you. Have a great night.